In this segment, we will address board governance as it relates to fundraising. Nathan Gerber and Associates, training and consultants for the nonprofit sector based in London, Ontario, identifies 5 governance models. The names for these models may be inconsequential, but this firm has named them as advisory model, patron model, cooperative model, management team model, and policy model. In brief, the basic characteristic of each is summarized as follows. The advisory model's primary role is that of helper and advisor to the CEO, or in the case of the church board, to the pastor, and in the case of the school board, to the board chair and principal. The patron model's role is the figurehead only for fundraising purposes, but has little influence in the governance of the organization. In the cooperative model, there really is no CEO and all responsibilities are shared, and the basic tie holding the organization together is a strong sense of mission. The management team model is characterized as democratic in nature and has committees and staff with defined roles that leads to the achievement of the vision and objectives of the organization. There may be a human resource committee, a finance committee, a strategic planning committee, a communication committee, and so on. Board members are very involved in the operation and administrative activities of the organization. This is the model most not-for-profit organizations use, including most Adventist churches and schools, and this model is quite conducive to fundraising. The basic pitfall for this model is that it's easy for the board to degenerate into micromanaging. The policy model clearly defines the role of the board as establishing policies, delegating responsibilities, monitoring compliance, and maintaining accountability. As I mentioned earlier, historically, the management team model is the most commonly used governance model in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Generally, the pastor is the chair of the board, and there are 5 basic responsibilities that he or she and the board should undertake as it considers projects that need to be funded. Responsibility number 1, to set the direction or vision for the organization and the project. That means the board paints the big picture, verbalizes what the end result should look like, but does not engage in the details. The second responsibility is to provide oversight to the project. The pastor and the board must make sure that the necessary resources, whether human or financial, are available to achieve the desired end result. But the board is not to manage the process. Number 3, to select or at least direct how leadership for the project is chosen. In the Adventist Church, the pastor and/or the pastoral team is generally assigned by the local conference, as are the principal and teachers of the local school. But the pastor and his leadership team are responsible for choosing the local leaders through an acceptable democratic process. The board's responsibility is to ensure that the process is followed properly. Another responsibility of the board is to internalize the vision and exhibit commitment to the mission of the organization and its projects. The pastor, as the chair, should constantly challenge his or her board members to respond to the question, does this action propel us toward the vision, and is this action really part of our mission? And number 5, to be the advocate for the organization. The board as a whole, and the members in particular, must speak positively about the organization, its vision, mission, and project, and take steps to handle any negativity toward it. It's easy to define the role of the board from an ideal perspective, but we must all know that boards face their challenges, some perhaps more so than others. These challenges become even more pronounced when fundraising is involved. Here are 3 basic ones, but I'm sure from your experience you could add many more. One challenge may be a divided loyalty to a voted action. Perhaps an illustration may help to explain. Suppose there are 4 adult Sabbath school classes conducted simultaneously in the church sanctuary. The acoustics are poor and bedlam ensues, so it is difficult both to hear and participate in any meaningful discussion. The board recognizes the problem and the majority vote to add new adult Sabbath school classrooms to the church building. However, the children's ministries leader objects, since he knows the children's division rooms are in desperate need of upgrading. The home and school leader objects to both projects because she has been waiting for funding approval to add a new staff lounge to the school. Loyalty to the agreed-upon project is compromised, and some board members become reluctant to share information about potential donors, reserving this information for when their pet project is approved. Or it may simply be because they are not in favor of the voted project. Another challenge is that members may be inaccessible due to geographic distances. Adventist members, other than in institutional settings such as medical or educational, generally do not congregate in communities that are in close geographical proximity to the church. This may be especially true in rural settings, where members drive vast distances to attend church or participate in board meetings. Such inaccessibility makes meaningful involvement in fundraising more difficult. A third challenge boards may face is that of absenteeism resulting in lack of responsiveness. We're all aware of the 20-80 principle, where 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Unfortunately, this rule seems to apply in Adventist circles as well, and some board members rarely or never attend the meetings and therefore are less than seriously involved, which may lead to unresponsiveness to the fundraising appeal. In spite of the challenges, the pastor and the board may still need to proceed with developing a fundraising strategy. How does a board organize for a successful fundraising project? There are 3 basic steps that may be followed. The first step is for the local board to vision. It is the pastor or board chair's responsibility to challenge the board to clearly identify the need, what it takes to meet the need, and what will be accomplished when the need is met. For example, a junior academy board discovers its young people primarily attend public high school after grade 10. By the time these young people complete grade 12, many no longer are committed to the Seventh-day Adventist belief system or lifestyle. They have developed friendships that have lured them away from spirituality, and some find lifetime partners outside the church. The school board identifies this trend as a problem, and the need is to expand the academy to a senior high level. The result would be that Christian teachers would continue to influence the young people in their spiritual walk, including adherence to the Adventist belief system and lifestyle. Adventist friendships can be maintained. However, for this to happen, it would involve the construction of an additional facility. In this case, the board has clearly identified the need, what it would take to meet the need, and what the predicted outcome is expected to be. The second step is for the board to select a development committee, sometimes referred to as a building committee. Continuing with our high school scenario, the board establishes a committee made up not only from amongst their own members, but also by non-board members whose expertise are needed in the construction phase. The pastor and the chair of the board should be members to ensure the vision is maintained. The development or building committee function would include, but not be limited to, developing drawings, floor plans, blueprints, obtaining permits, and ultimately overseeing the construction. But a major aspect of the committee's function would be to identify the cost accurately, and in so doing, 3 methods may be employed: a detailed construction cost estimate, external cost benchmarks, internal cost benchmarks. If these 3 projected estimates harmonize, then it is safe to assume the construction costs are accurate. This information is reported to the board and passed on to the next committee the board must establish. The third step is for the board to develop a fundraising committee. Again, the pastor and the chairs of both the board and development committee are ex officio members of the committee. The function of this committee includes developing a professional fundraising strategy. Of all the committees, this one should be selected with extreme care and should have prestige and respect. Although they will not be involved in policy setting or governing, they will be the ones engaged in fundraising and meeting the public. Depending on the magnitude of the project and expertise of these members, it may be advantageous to engage the services of a professional fundraising consultant. But remember, though, the consultant will not be the door knocker, but will guide the members through the process. Educating the leadership and members of the organization regarding attitudes and expectations is another function of the fundraising committee. Some members hesitate to discuss fundraising issues due to serving on multiple organizations that may develop into conflicting loyalties. A pastor, for example, may hesitate to participate in the fundraising process because he or she may be a member of two organizations, both who are fundraising simultaneously. Other members hesitate because of negative fundraising connotations such as, "This is begging for money," or "It's arm-twisting our friends and neighbors." It is the pastor's role to dispel these myths. Yet, even if discomfort still exists, the pastor can assure the members there are other ways they can support, such as participating at recognition events involving thanking donors. The pastor's role on the fundraising committee is to ensure best practices are followed. It is his or her responsibility to encourage 100% participation by board members. Donors expect that each board member will personally make a financial contribution toward the project, though the amount may not necessarily be divulged. The pastor may even recommend that someone identify a challenge gift. In one instance, a member pledged a $500,000 gift and challenged others to match him. Later, this same member stepped out in faith and raised the challenge gift to $1 million. To his surprise, God almost immediately replaced the pledged amount in ways that cannot be explained other than that God opened the windows of heaven. It is imperative that the pastor and the board chair keep the board members and the membership at large informed regarding the progress of the fundraising project. In this case, silence is not golden. Through as many ways as he or she can think of, the pastor must regularly provide progress reports. The more progress members see, the more enthusiastic they will be, and the more willing they will be to participate. Everyone thrives on success. Now, let's review the governance model the Adventist Church usually follows. Is the management team model, which adopts reasonably well to the not-for-profit sector. It is quite conducive to fundraising. The pastor, as the leader of the organization, is responsible to lead the board in setting the direction for the fundraising project, providing oversight and selecting or at least directing how to choose the right people to carry out the project. The board must also internalize the vision and mission and advocate for the organization and its specially chosen project. Adventist boards face challenges that must be addressed. Challenges such as divided loyalties, member inaccessibility and absenteeism leading to non-responsiveness. Once a project that needs fundraising has been decided upon, the pastor and his board should establish 3 committees. The Visioning Committee, which may be the board itself, to clearly identify the need, what it takes to meet the need, and what the projected outcome should look like. The Development or Building Committee then develops the detailed plans, oversees construction at the appropriate time, and presents an accurate cost projection to the board and fundraising committee. The Fundraising Committee then develops a professional fundraising strategy, educates the leadership regarding attitudes and expectations, ensures that the best practices are always followed, and keeps the board and the membership informed regarding the progress of the fundraising program. And so, both the pastor and the board are vital to successful fundraising for the Seventh-day Adventist Church and its entities.